Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today, as usual. Hey, yesterday I left a few people on the phone hanging because, again, I have three screens that I have to control, and this big screen has three screens themselves. So please, in case you're online waiting and for some reason I forget to look on the side and check the voices, please leave a note in the under the Politics Done Right, under the Facebook.com/Politics Done Right, or the Twitch or the YouTube feed, so that I can actually see it. Welcome aboard, AVQ. You are away. Well, you know that you're listening here. We are honored. Bridge MCP. Last night, Biden's show was awesome. The guy is trying. It was nice to feel a part of something. Yeah, I actually had it on this side screen here. I watched the inauguration, the show after with all the singers and all of that. I had fun. I enjoyed it. In fact, was texting with people. Hey, did you see that? Did you see that? The show that was, what was the name of the show? The song, the Spanish song, Despacito. They were playing Despacito, man. Where is he away? Hey, Rudnan, they want to know, where are you? Eric Hayes, welcome aboard, my brother. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard as well. Let's see who else is here. Anyway, look, folks, let me tell you how I'm going to start. We are much too often, we have a short attention span. And that short attention span have a tendency to, yes, we want to know where you are, AVQ. Many times that short attention span gets us in trouble. And let me tell you what I mean by that. It allows us to repeat the same thing over, and it creates an insanity. You know the definition of insanity: doing things the same way over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And what happens then is, when things happen, if we allow to go ahead and back up and allow things to occur without having repercussion, it tends to fall in the background and we forget. So today's show, the title of today's show is, let me put it on the screen. We must not forget the insurrection. Democracy and unity first demand the traitors atone. And yes, Bruce started at immigration, then medical. I think he's actually started at all of them, to tell you the truth. His bill is huge. He's doing I think he realizes one thing. He got 2 years to start. Hello, Lee Grant. Welcome aboard. Paul Fleming from ATL, Atlanta. Welcome aboard as well. Thank you guys for being here. So, but going back into the trend that I'm talking about now, I got my caller on. And so I make sure I do not forget my caller. I'm going to break into the introduction and bring the caller in. Caller, you are on. 828, you are on. Come on in.
Hey, how you doing, Roberto? This is Hope in North Carolina.
Hope in Carolina del Norte. How you doing, North Carolina, Hope? Welcome aboard.
Carolina del Norte.
Carolina del Norte. You said it right. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I haven't finished playing Hail to the Chief. I have played it 20,000 times in the last 24 hours.
Are you talking about the poem?
I'm talking about the song, baby. We got a little bit of new blood in the White House.
Oh, I tell you, man. I tell you, right?
Yeah. One quick just fun note for your listeners, and then I'll get off and listen to the show. But I wanted people to know yesterday that there's all kinds of buzz going on around the inauguration, but if you look at the three power chicks who were on the stage, okay, Madam Vice President, Michelle Obama, and Hillary, they all had something in common in terms of the color that they were sporting.
Oh, tell me about it. See, I am oblivious to stuff like that. Tell me about it.
That was the color purple.
Oh.
And purple has a lot of references, and it may have some special, personal tie for Kamala to either, I haven't looked it up, whether it was Howard or whatnot, but there was a congresswoman, the first Black congresswoman who was ever elected, okay, back in 1968, was a woman by the name of Shirley Anita Chisholm.
Shirley Chisholm, yes, I remember her. Yes, absolutely.
And she was from the 12th District in New York, which is actually, interestingly enough, it's the district, I think, where Trump Tower is housed now. It's on the east side of New York, okay? And parts of it kind of overlap into 14, and but anyway, that's not important. But there was a connection with the pearls that kind of goes to Kamala's sorority, but it also goes to Shirley Chisholm, because Shirley Chisholm wore a lot of purple. And I think that the pant references, other than just, I don't want to freeze my legs off, were, also kind of, a statement that, girls can wear the pants in the family. And I just want to share with you that, like, as a woman, I am overjoyed at Kamala Harris. And you guys out there, you just don't know how meaningful that really is, that we have a woman VP. I mean, I don't want to diminish everyone's feelings of joy, but that's been a long, long climb to shatter that ceiling. And it's a major, major deal. And a lot of the purple references, I mean, purple is normally a color of like nobility and power. It can also be a color of mourning, but I think in a way, it's also kind of, the reflection back and the giving back to women and also famous Black leaders who have walked before. But I thought so much of Shirley Chisholm because she was just such an awesome character, and she hasn't really been gone that long. I mean, she died in 2005, but I want to encourage listeners to read a book about Shirley Chisholm, because she was a major force and a brilliant woman, and just an incredibly interesting character. And she's a huge inspiration for Kamala Harris.
Well, let me tell you something, Hope. I wanted you to have as much time as you needed to make that thing out, because, yes, it's inspirational. Women should have been in charge long time ago. In fact, Hillary actually won the popular vote, which tells me that she should have been in command if this was a true democracy, and we would have had a woman in charge before. I am not a fan of Hillary. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I'm a fan of much more progressive people, but I know how to compromise. We all know how to compromise. We all know that what we do, we make steps to the better good. So I'm happy for Kamala. I'm happy for Hillary Clinton, what she's achieved, because she was a stepping stone as well in getting, in the advancement of women in politics. Shirley Chisholm and the woman from Texas, I forget her name right now. It's a shame, But look,
Jordan.
Yes, Jordan. Yes, and let me tell you something. The feeling that you have, I am ecstatic that there are women all through this country that feel that right now, because there's nothing like feeling there's nothing holding you back. And for women for too long, I'm going to tell you a quick little story, and then, guys, I'm going to go to the program. But I think this is important. I got into trouble, and I may get into trouble again for saying this, but I went and wrote an article at the Daily Kos, and I was really upset when Hillary lost. And I wrote the article that said, how bad is sexism? How bad is misogyny? The fact that a black man got to the presidency before a white woman tells you a little bit of something. I got kicked all over. White women kicked me, black women kicked me, progressive kicked me. Everybody kicked me for saying it, okay? But
Yeah.
I never went back. You know, I said I understood I understood why they kicked me, but I still think deep on the inside there's a level of sexism in this country because, again, if you go to any church, the white church, the black church, the Asian church, every church that I've attended to, in as much as most of the times I've seen women being the leaders, the ones doing everything, they still most of the times aren't the pastors, aren't the deacons, aren't the leaders, the real leaders in the church by name. So somebody's going to send me some dirty emails again, but I wanted you to hear that out of, you to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I don't know. I mean, I hopefully it'll be the case in a few, decades where we don't really compartmentalize too much.
Exactly. You know what is interesting? Hope. Let me tell you something, Hope. This is interesting because I love that you said that. There's going to be a time where we will not have to compartmentalize. But what I told a few of my right-wing friends, because they said, "Oh, you Democrats always play identity politics," and I said, "Yes, we play identity politics because different identities are treated differently, and until we mitigate how they are treated, we have to play identity politics. We have to do the gay thing. We have to do the black thing. We got to do the Latino thing. We got to do the women thing. We got to do the gay. We have to do it to make sure that we can make sure that everybody is on an equal playing field. Not equal outcomes, but everybody has the same opportunity to succeed, in my humble opinion."
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, I can't wait what you have in store today. So I'm going to get off and listen.
Thank you so kindly, Hope, for calling in.
Yeah, you have a fantastic program and you have a great afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one now. All right, folks, that was
Bye-bye.
Hope, one of our great listeners. She blogs at our site sometimes as well. Anyhow, let's go ahead and continue with the program, and I'm going to come back to several of the answers that I see on the screen later. But I want to start with ethics. This is how Joe Biden started with his people. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I'm not joking when I say this. If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot. On the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everybody is entitled to be treated with decency and dignity. That's been missing in a big way the last 4 years.
Now, the reason I played that first is that is the tone you want to set. Respect each other, irrespective of their ideology, irrespective whether you're from a standpoint of whether they're your subordinate or not. Respect. It is something that I surely and always believe in, and it's great to see that is how Biden started his thing, if you will. In other words, everybody is going to respect everybody. That is what we're going to do. That is what's going to happen going forward. Hey, look, there's a 4-minute segment that I was listening to on during the inauguration yesterday, and it had to do with with us knowing that we had a domestic terrorist problem in this country for a long time, but because of who it was or who it is, we kind of tended to let it pass. I want to let you hear this discussion between Joanne Reed and Johnson, who was in charge of DHS, because it says a lot. And listen to all the little details in this discussion, and then we'll go ahead and take it on the other side.
Your predecessor, Janet Napolitano, under her auspices as Department of Homeland Security Secretary, there was a full-on report that was produced about the risks of right-wing domestic terrorism that created such a furor on the right among conservatives in this country that it actually was rescinded. I'm wondering if the work that was done during the Obama administration on that, whether the work product still exists in some way in your view, do you think? And what could we maybe learn from going back? I'm sitting here looking at the Capitol and having just stepped foot inside of that building just yesterday. It gives me chills just to see the images of the Capitol now, still have flashbacks to that same building being overrun and swarmed by the president's supporters who formed what amounts to a lynch mob. If we came to that, obviously we missed a lot. Do you think that the work product from that 2009 effort still exists, and can it still be used?
I was responsible for the overall security of this event 4 years ago when I was the outgoing Secretary of Homeland Security. Donald Trump went to the western front of the Capitol and talked about American carnage. A lot of us then, including apparently George W. Bush, said, what the heck is he talking about? And here we are 4 years later, in a very, very different environment. We have refrigerator trucks adjacent to hospitals and funeral homes, and we saw literally carnage on the western front of the U.S. Capitol 2 weeks ago. That's what Trumpism has brought us. Now, when it comes to domestic-based far-right extremism, in the last years of the Obama administration, certainly on my watch, I can tell you that this became an increasing focus of ours, to the point where I spent a lot of time on countering violent extremism programs here in the United States. And we imposed on Congress, we got Congress to fund local-based efforts at countering violent extremism, including white nationalism. I was pleased to find out that there are groups dedicated to countering white nationalism, violent extremism, and we wanted to fund those efforts. Frankly, they went off track over the last 4 years, and I'm sure that the incoming administration will rededicate itself to those efforts.
And how much more complicated does it make it to do that work when you've had the highest ranking political leader of a major political party, namely the President of the United States, incorporate the very kinds of people that you all were investigating as part of his base and as a critical part of his base, so that the government was not allowed to message against them, that they were brought in, they were told to stand back and stand by, that both white nationalists and, whatever they call themselves, Western nationalists, extremists are pulled in. And if you could just answer that in the context of Joe Biden's got to try to do a mask mandate. And part of what these right-wing extremist groups hate is any kind of a mandate that stops COVID. So he's still going to face, I would imagine, risks from these people because they are also mixed in. Anti-vaxxers and anti-mask people, and all of that extremism is now mixed.
The task is a daunting one, without a doubt. Joe Biden is inheriting a national mood, a threat picture, a climate unlike. There exists in this country a strand of America that is racist, intolerant, prone to violence, and vulnerable to fake news, paranoia, appeals to bigotry, and conspiracy theories. Over the last 4 years, Donald Trump peeled the lid off that group and told them, you're special people, we love you, emboldened them to come out into the open in places like Charlottesville and the U.S. Capitol 2 weeks ago. On top of that, they don't wear masks. They don't observe good norms for public health and public safety. So there's a lot of work to be done. It's more than just bridging the divide. It's more than just inviting Mitch McConnell to church with him. There's a lot of serious work that's going to be done. The president's bringing in a very, very experienced team. They've got a daunting task.
Yes, they do. But realize what he said there. We knew about this for quite some time, but we were asked to back off. We were concentrated on the Muslims coming into America, but they were never really the problem in the aggregate. If you add up all the deaths that have occurred over the last several years, it is right-wing white supremacists that have been killing people in this country for all this time. And until we mitigate that, and one of the things that we have to do is we have to get the enabling senators, the enabling congresspersons, and all those who invaded the Capitol, those insurgents, the terrorists who invaded the Capitol, they must be put away. They must be thrown in jail. And others have to see that there is a price. There are more of us who believe in the law. There are more of us who are willing to follow the Constitution as far as it concerns safety. And it will not be tolerated if we allow this to go by. If we don't hang this around the necks of all those politicians who were unpatriotic, then we would deserve what we will get in 2022 if we don't hold them to atone. No person who denied Biden, who said Biden did not win that election knowing the truth, is either an insurrectionist or an enabler of an insurrectionist. Ted Cruz must go. And this is what I talked about here. Great to see what they're doing in Texas to keep the pressure on. Well, folks, the pressure is getting hot in the kitchen. The pressure is getting pretty darn hot. For who? Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, we know he's complicit in the attempt to overthrow the United States government, in the attempt at the coup, in the insurrection that occurred on January 6th. And, you know, our local paper, which isn't a bastion of liberalism, our local paper is not a liberal paper at all. And 2 days after Ted Cruz made that speech in the Capitol, and we had the insurrection, what did the editorial staff at the Houston Chronicle say? Editorial says, resign, Senator Cruz. Your lies cost lives. And if you think that was the end of it or that would blow over, just a couple days ago, what did we get? We had people throughout Houston and other places carrying caskets, pallbearers, telling Ted Cruz it's time to resign, going to his home in Houston, it's time to resign. Here is a little video of what they did, the little stint that they pulled out in Houston on Ted Cruz. I think we need to do this continuously, effectively. We have to keep in people's minds that Ted Cruz caused harm to many, that Ted Cruz, along with the cabal of people attempting to overthrow the United States government, are responsible for the deaths of many people. It is important that we don't just let this be some sort of a protest, some sort of a riot. That isn't what it was all about. This cost lives, and good for this organization, along with many others that are starting to really point out that Ted Cruz is a clear and present danger to America. He is a clear and present danger, and this organization did a great job of pointing that out. We need to keep the pressure on. We need to make sure that we don't forget that there was an attempt in this country to overthrow a democratically elected government. We have a tendency when things get soft and cool and nice to forget it. We cannot. We have to keep the pressure on, not only on the people who committed the crimes breaking into the Capitol, but we also have to make every politician that was complicit in the coup attempt, they must pay. They must resign, and those who actually could be shown materially to help, thrown in jail. We spend a lot of time deconstructing. Actually, they should be thrown in jail, including those guys that are currently in the House. We only get unity after atonement. We only get unity. Let me explain why that is the case. You can't have somebody who says, I can go ahead and kill, and then you forgive me, and then we can unite. You can't do that. There has to be a price that's paid. They killed 5 people effectively. They have to pay for it. And those senators that are involved as well must pay. They must go to jail or kicked out of the Senate. And we must work at that. And when if we don't do it, as they run again, we must run the ads with all the examples of the insurrection. And we must have the side by side. Ted Cruz talking in the Senate, lying, and having the insurrectionists repeating Ted Cruz's lie to invade the Capitol. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we play the segment that says Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley would want us to do this. Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley would want us to do that. They said that. All right, folks, before we get to our interview today, which is one of the board of directors at the Houston Peace and Justice Center, let me do my regular skill. Please, if you are on YouTube, consider supporting us. Click that join button. When you click that join button, what you're doing is you're helping to make sure we can continue doing what we do here, continue to tell the truth, continue to get the message out. So please click that join button. If you are not on YouTube, you can support us still by going to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. That is politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. And that way you can become a subscriber. This is Brige, one of our supporters, calls it. She says, join the PDR posse, which is what we call it, the PDR posse. So please go ahead and click that join button under the video. And by the way, notice under the video, we also have things like hoodies and all that kind of stuff, masks, all that good stuff. And again, if you are not on, just go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube and it'll take you there. Alternatively, you can support us by joining our Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Patreon. Hey, Berto, why are you repeating that? Because some people only listen to this on podcasts, on either iTunes or TuneIn or one of the others. So there we go, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, Patreon. Alternatively, we love PayPal as well, so you can go to politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. That is another way to support us, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Please get the book that says, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. Here's the link for it on Amazon. But if you want to cut out the middleman and support us directly, go to our store. Get it at politicsdoneright.com/store. All our books are there, both on Amazon and at our store. When you support us, what are you supporting? Personally, I write between 3 to 5 blogs a day to get it into the internet space. Progressive message in independent media, progressive message in the internet space, so that we counteract a lot of the lies and false information coming from the right. The only way to do that is to make sure you have keywords right, to make sure that you have, in other words, when the big news is about insurrection, if we don't have a base of people putting out messages on insurrection in a manner that tells the truth, the progressive truth, the only truth that is with respect to what occurred, their corrections, a lot of what they want to put out there, the right wing pays to put a lot of other messages out there. And when the search engine goes ahead and search, a lot of those other messages come up. By us putting our real information out there, the search engines also pick it up. So I do my part. I do about 3 to 5 blogs a day, 3 to 5 videos a day, because search engines do the videos now, both voice recognition and all that sort of stuff now. So we put the videos out there as well. We do this program, politicsdoneright.com, on the internet, on several different channels, as well as on air. So when you're supporting Politics Done Right, you're supporting one entity putting out a lot of messaging to do our part in supporting the progressive message, so that the lies don't cauterize into your relatives' minds, which is what happens a lot right now. But what I'm saying as well is, it's hard work. I need a producer. I need a copy editor, etc., etc., etc. 16 hours a day. Eventually you burn out. But that's what we're doing. We need your support. So please go ahead and click that join button. Please go ahead and use one of the links that I've supported there. Purchase our books, all of that sort of stuff helps out. We are very frugal with whatever you provide, as you can see. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get to that interview, and then we'll come back and I'll talk to you guys on the other side. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. I am here with David Atwood. David Atwood is a board of director on the Houston Peace and Justice Center board. Welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today, David?
Doing good, Egberto. Really good. Thank
Well,
you.
look, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you, we had our meetings, our board meeting, and I heard you make some comments about the insurrection that we had on January 6th, and you wrote a blog piece for that we placed on politics, or rather at our website, that was titled "My Thoughts About the Underlying Factors Leading to January 6th."
Correct.
I'd like to know, in your point of view, what do you think really led up to January 6th? Is this something new? Is it something that's been in the making? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that there are a lot of underlying things that have been going on in our country for a long time. And, one of the things is economic inequality, which has got much worse in the last 40 years, but we've always had it. It's nothing new. But in the last 40 years, that's got much worse. And so there are a lot of people that are, I think they're just feeling left out of what's going on in this country. Um, and so even though, Donald Trump really, I don't want to downplay at all his role. He really uh, exacerbated that in his tax cuts that he supposedly put through, and he made it worse. But he also made worse the whole uh, the bigotry and the racism that we've had in this country for the beginning of the country. And I think all these things played together, along with, I hate to say it, but there are members in the faith community, faith leaders that seem to add fuel to the fire and the things that they were saying. And then this all sort of just came together um, with the inflammatory words of Donald Trump, and it exploded.
Now, in your
So,
paper, in the piece that you wrote, you said the Republican Party allowed an unqualified man like Trump to become its candidate for president. Political parties should always pick someone who cares deeply about the citizens of the nation and the welfare of the nation itself.
right, right. And Donald Trump, it was obvious after a while that he was in there that he cared primarily about himself. But we have a lot of other politicians. I called them the enablers of Donald Trump. When that first impeachment came up, they would deal with it in the Senate, and or even a lot of people in the House of Representatives. And so Donald Trump and shouldn't have ever been in there, but he got in. Um, he's not the kind of person we'd ever want to have as president. We've had other people in as president that I haven't really cared that much for, but I think that they had some loyalty to the country and to the people of the country. Although it wasn't perfect, it never is perfect. But Trump was really the worst. And and then he had these people, I call them the enablers. When he first got, I think he was in maybe about a year. I started thinking about the history of this world and people that we've had, especially. I'm pretty familiar with the history of Europe, the Nazi regime, what happened. I've traveled to Italy several times. I'm familiar with what happened in Italy, and it's happened in other countries where you've had an autocratic kind of person get in. Well, they couldn't stay in if it wasn't for the enablers. They're surrounded by enablers that allow them to do the bad things that they did. And so we had the same thing here. And my God, if we had not, and we still have problems even with Trump leaving as of basically today, but uh, if he got in for another 4 years with surrounded by his enablers, I don't know what would have happened in this country. It's bad enough as it is. We've got a lot to deal with in the next 4 years or so in terms of this. I really call it almost a mental illness that we have in this country now. Mental illness among many people who believe things that are absolutely not true. They don't seem to think for themselves. That's why I brought up the other thing in that paper about education. a lot of people don't really understand how fragile our democracy is and how it's important to have a system where the people vote, the people, their vote counts. But the number of people that voted for Trump, oh my God, I mean, just we still have a serious problem going forward. And so the need for education of our young people, and I don't know about the older folks in the middle age. I don't know if they're salvageable at this point, but we have such a need for education on the importance of democracy and the importance um, of good people in office, people who care.
Now, you work a lot with the Houston Peace and Justice Center, and I get your mail-ins throughout the day. You put out a lot of information every day, continuously. I think it important information. How do you think we can get people aware? I mean, like I said, in your little niche that you're doing at, I don't know where you're, I don't know from where you're sending out all this stuff, but you read important stuff that you find useful, and you put it through the Houston Peace and Justice Center mailing list, and you send it out quite often. Very important stuff. How do you think, what can we do to put this information in a manner that those 74 million ill-informed people, and I don't even mean that as a pejorative or anything. It's just, it's just the way it is. How do we get that information to them? I know you're working through the Peace and Justice Center, but how can we further that?
Well, I think we need to, how many people see what's on the Houston Peace and Justice Center website, or even, see what I send out? What you're doing, Egberto, is really great. I mean, you're getting the word out there. We just need to do, I think we ought to focus on that and try to answer your question. How do we get the word out there? I know that there are different ways. A lot of people now are getting, they get their communication, they get all their misinformation through different sites, websites, and things that are on the computer. And they're get, they've got kicked off on some of this recently because it was so outrageous and it led to January 6th. But I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think we're doing good enough job getting our message out. Um, I do I try to do what I can do through the Houston Peace and Justice Center. I'm also involved with Pax Christi, which is a Catholic peace and justice organization I've been involved with for many years. I send stuff to them. They get it out, but even there, it's not enough.
I have noticed one of the things is that there's a certain value in misinforming people, right? And misinformed people can be directed to do things that they wouldn't normally do. Like a lot of people really were really hard on all those marchers in DC. And I took a different stance. I took the stance that all those people can't be bad people. In fact, we probably deal with them every day. One of the problems is that they're so misinformed, and they so look for the wrong boogeyman for their problems.
Right.
And that goes with informing them appropriately.
Absolutely. And I think one of the problems is that, I mean, they're getting it from many different sources. They get on the computer and they look up certain things. They get information that's misinformation there. They get it from, they got a whole bunch of misinformation from Twitter, from Trump directly. And then, but I think it even starts earlier than that. I mean, a lot of people, we're fortunate in that we've had opportunities to get, I'd say, relatively well educated. But a lot of people live in areas of the country and grow up in families where this information goes from generation to generation. And they go to churches, and I know this because I I have some people in my own family that fall into that category. They get misinformation from some of these pastors at churches that's just off the wall, in my opinion. my humble opinion. It's off the wall. And so the education has to start early. Um, it really, our whole education system, I think, needs to, and I've heard, and I'm not really an expert on this, but I've heard that, um, there's been conscious efforts to cut out certain information from educational programs, about the history of this country.
Well, you know, the 1776 project that Donald Trump just came out with to lie about how whether slavery was really the
Yeah,
hypocrisy of our founders. And we also have, I don't know if you followed back in the 60s, the Powell Manifesto that actually tried to teach Americans not, and when the progressives were getting ahead, it's like we can't have too many smart people around because effectively they'll realize that our economic system is really a biased system. So I mean, there are a whole lot of, you're correct, there's a whole lot of folks out there, or there's a whole lot of people out there intent on making a certain percentage of us ill-informed.
absolutely. And it starts early on, unfortunately. And it goes, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but a lot of people, I mean, if you took the people that were in Washington on January 6th, I know there were some people there that were more highly educated, but probably the vast majority are not that well educated. They get
Well,
their information from the internet, from their church communities, from their parents who probably weren't very well educated, and then they feel disenfranchised. Uh, they look at their lives and say, "I'm not doing too well," and they soak this stuff up. And to a lot of us, it's hard to believe that they soak this stuff up, but they do. And also, the Latino community, they had to fight for studies. I mean, the history of this country in terms of the African American community, the Latino community, um, they've had to fight to get certain things in the curriculum, even because that was part of that effort. When we see it in Texas in spades sometimes in some of our politicians
hmm
that we have, in high levels. Um, but I want getting back to your question about how do we do a better job educating. That is a fantastic question, and I really don't have all the answers, but I know that I agree that we have to do it, and I think it ought to be almost like there ought to be I hate to use the word commission, but there ought to be a group of people that are studying the education system in our country and looking at all the aspects of that and asking that question: how do we better educate, and how do we get people to really know the history of this country and really the history of the world in terms of autocratic leaders and the
Yeah.
fragility of democracy.
I'm glad you said that because, the reality is a democracy requires a certain level of education, to put it bluntly. It requires that you're educated enough to know that there are certain sacrifices that need to be made as opposed to the immediacy of certain things that you want today. All these things are necessary. And it's not to sound, in this case, it's not to sound elitist, it's not to sound snobbish. It's just in certain, there are times that we want to ship democracy all over the world. The truth of the matter is a country has to be ready for democracy with a population that is ready for democracy, where everyone really has a voice in ruling.
Right. And I think that the low numbers on voting is
hmm
telling. People don't, if they don't vote, they don't really, that really says that they don't really understand
Right.
how important it is to vote. Um, and we, so that's part of it. Um, I know there are efforts being made to improve all that, but I think January 6th showed us that we need to do a much better job in terms of education. And we need to call out people that you know that put out information that's incorrect. And we've seen some of that. I mean, this time the president was so outrageous. That probably, if there hadn't been that horrible rally and invasion, now there's nothing wrong with a rally, but the invasion of the Capitol, the insurrection, if that hadn't happened, then Trump's words would have just been out there again, along with all his Twitters um, about, putting out misinformation. The only thing that
Right.
really brought this to a head was the fact that they attacked the Capitol in Washington. And it's been a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of people, even for a bunch of Republicans who have been
Well,
Trump's
they're
enablers.
they're scared now, but I'm running on time now, David. So let me ask you one last question. First of all, I want to thank you for being here. I mean, you do a lot of important work with the Houston Peace and Justice Center, and one of the things that I always want to do with a program like Politics Done Right is to highlight those people that are out there in the field trying to make this a better world. Is there something that you would have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
Well, let me just say this. As you know, I'm very interested in Dr. King's teaching about the beloved community. The question is, how do we create this beloved community? And I think it's incumbent on people to get out of their comfort zones and go out into the community and meet people that are not like them, people of different races, religions, nationalities. That's the only way that I think we will develop this beloved community where we really care for each other and really respect each other. And we never resort to violence to solve our problems. So that's the only thing I would say about that is that um, I was fortunate. I got involved in some things that took me into the community. And I met people that don't look like me, don't think like me, are different from me. And that was a blessing. That was a blessing. So we have to get out of our comfort zones and go out and do that. And I think if we do that, that's part of the education process. Going both ways is meeting other people.
David Atwood, Board of Directors, Houston Peace and Justice Center. Thank you so kindly for having been here. You don't only speak it, you live it. Thank you so kindly for being on Politics Done Right.
Thank you, Egberto. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
That was David Atwood, very, very local activist. Actually, it's not only local because we've honored all the big shots in literature, etc., right here under this organization. In fact, we just honored the woman from MAD, Mothers Against Guns, MAG, or forgot the name of it. Anyhow, welcome aboard, Paul Fleming, Emily Orn Johnson, AVQ. Rose Williams, Voter Education Project. Welcome aboard, my friend Carl. That's Carl's. How you doing, Carl? Lee Grant, welcome aboard. Eric Hayes, Daniel Ledo, Linda Joe Kessinger, Roberto Luis, mi hermano de Panama. Let's see who else is here. Para ver. I think I got Bruce Pollard in. Lee Grant, I got you. Eric Hayes, I got you. Okay, I'm going up. Man, you guys had some great conversation. Great. Brige MCP. Of course I got Brige MCP many times. E2247. Welcome aboard. And let's see who else I've got here. John Cotter. Welcome aboard. They need to be expelled from Congress and banned from all government services. John Cotter, I believe you. I'm with you. I agree with you. Okay, let's see. Who else is here? Am I gonna miss? If I miss you, just throw yourself down in the bottom and I'll repeat. I'll go back down when I start answering questions. All right, Lee, I think I got you right. Let's see. Okay, great. All right, guys, let's get busy. I saw some messages that I think I needed to respond to. Yeah, the poem was great, Eric. And I believe in that poem. That poem was beyond her years. What's her name? I can't remember. What's wrong with my name? I can't remember anybody's names these days. Anyway, Amanda Gorman, I think is what her name is. Amanda Gorman. Yeah, Lady Gaga was really good. All right, let's come down. Let's see what do I have here. Replying, let's see. Antifa celebrated the inaugurations last night. Come on, Lee. Stop searching around the country till you find something and say, oh, look at what these guys, these terrorists did. This is nothing like the insurrection. None of that is like the insurrection. Lee Grant says 8 of the activists were arrested and 1 police officer could be seen swinging apparently confiscated combat knife during the conflict that ensued. Did anybody die? I don't think so, right? Okay. All right. Continuing down. Daniel, why do you come? Daniel loves us here. That's why Daniel comes. He loves the discussion. He loves the debate. He loves the discussion. Daniel is changing. Daniel is going to become a progressive. He's going to be one of the most avid progressives out here. Eric A says he's letting killers out now. OGG? OGG? Who's OGG? Don't know who that is, Eric. All right, let's see what else I have. Egberto, you will be held to account for your lies, instigation, and sedition. You know, you always tell me about lying, and yet you have never been able to give me a statement in which you can say, I lied. Please tell me specifically what lie I have told Daniel Ledo. You see, I fact-check my stuff, man. All right, you don't keep a snake in the chicken coop. Investigate, then take the proper steps to clean out the virus in Congress. Paul Fleming, you hit the nail on the head, brother. Lee Grant says, this is no insurrection. To think this handful of fanatics could take over the... No, that's not how insurrections work, brother. I'm from Central America. Ask me how it works, okay? Please. America hasn't seen this since the 1800s. So they don't believe this stuff can happen. Those people in that, they could have caused an entire change in the country. That's how insurrections work. I'll go down the breakdown to tell you how that would have ballooned into a real something. But we'll talk about that another time, Brother Grant. You know I love you, but listen to me. That was an insurrection, and worse, that was a murderous insurrection. All right, continuing. Let's see. Lee Grant, let's see what else. So is David saying we need re-education camps? No, he's not saying, hey, Eric Hayes, no. What we were saying is simple. You know, here's the problem that I have sometimes. You know, a lot of people on the right, okay, they have, first of all, let me qualify this. I think we are all just as intelligent based on some sort of a curve, okay? And I don't know what curve that would be. Some want to call it a bell curve, that if you measure our intelligence level, it falls under a bell curve. I don't know about that because I don't know what intelligence in the aggregate is. I honestly don't know in the aggregate how to measure intelligence in the aggregate. So what I find is that Daniel Ledo may be able to do some stuff that I could never possibly do. And I could possibly do something that Daniel Ledo could possibly not be able to do. Am I more intelligent than Daniel, or is Daniel more intelligent than I am? Hell no. We are wired differently and can do different things that we need. Okay? It's like I say, a stockbroker makes a lot of money, a farmer makes a little bit of money. You throw a stock, who's more valuable? You throw a stockbroker and a farmer on a desolate island, you know who survives? The farmer. So who has more value? The person who can survive, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of complexities that people don't see or people don't examine. All right, so no, as far as intelligence is concerned, I generally go under the tenet that we are all intelligent, but we're all informed. Some of us are lucky to have been informed by the right people. Some are to the right sources. Some are unlucky to have been informed by the wrong sources. The problem is when you try to inform those informed by the wrong sources, they'll say, you're trying to be elitist, or you're calling me dumb. No, I'm not calling you dumb. I'm just saying you're misinformed. Have I ever been misinformed? Hell yes. Have I admitted to being misinformed? Hell yes. Absolutely so. I was a fool when it came to same-sex marriage and same-sex relationships. I was a fool when it came to things about the power of women. I was a fool about a lot of things. When it was pointed out to me, thank the stars, that I said, oh, I need to change. And to date, if one of you were to find something that is incorrect in my thinking methodology, I would change right here on air as well. I've done it before. People have called into KPFT and said, Egberto, guess what? You're wrong because of this. To which I say, oh, you're right. I'm wrong. So when we get to that position where being wrong isn't fatal, or being wrong isn't like the end of the world, being wrong isn't embarrassing, it's just being wrong. It's just being uninformed. And you take the information, and instead of trying to make yourself right with bad information, just take it. Linda Jo Kessinger says, too many people look for facts which back up their biases and I like you put the facts in quotation, what they already believe, and disregard anything which goes against it. Yeah. And that's why I like science, right? Science is, the facts mean it's repeatable. Now, when it comes to certain things with opinion, that is nebulous. So opinion I can't fight about. Is abortion wrong or right? I can't fight that issue. I am pro-choice, meaning I leave that decision up to a woman, the person who carries a baby. Is it wrong or right? I don't know. But is water H2O? That's an absolute statement. Is global warming real? That's an absolute statement. So that is how we have to learn to act. There are certain things that you can't say are facts, and certain things that you have to understand that they're. Let me run to the bottom, see if anybody else is here. Bridge MCP. Like we said yesterday, fact and opinion are not the same. Absolutely so. Egberto Willis, critical thinking needs to be taught in our schools, not just facts and yes, and I had a guest on a couple of last week that was talking about critical thinking. I hope you can go back to her. I don't remember her name right now. She was actually in Paris, but she talked about critical thinking. That is something that we've lost, critical thinking skills, and all of that came about with the Powell Manifesto. All right, let's see. I don't think I have any much more. John Carter said, I think Cruz and Hawley are vying for Trump's base. Yes, they are. They don't have the media skill that Trump does, but all it means is Cruz and Hawley will spout more wild and crazy nonsense to remain relevant. That is if they are able to keep themselves in the Senate. I got to get out of here. Look, folks, thank you so kindly for having been part of the show. Thank you so kindly for all those great pieces, both on the left and the right, the stuff that you put in the feed. I think that's what makes, when you're talking in my feed, you're not only talking to those of us in the feed, you're talking to all those people that are going to read this stuff later on. So you're doing a service. Whether you're wrong or right, because we have a discussion here, you're doing a service. So thank you guys for doing that. Please, again, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and join. Click that join button and please become a member. Like if you're not on YouTube, you're on some other network, go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Please get my book and put in the link for the book in there, and consider shopping at our store. That is politicsdoneright.com/store. All of that you do to help us get the job done. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Usually, I can say I am out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willis. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willis. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.